right.
I love that entrance. I love it. I love it. I'm going to cut you off. I love it.
And the thing about it is, if you are listening on the podcast version after the fact, or even the YouTube after the fact, you don't get to experience what Bill's talking about. He's talking about this amazing countdown video that we have for the live, which allows us to prepare, allows me to send out some tweets, and then stuff like that saying, hey, we're about to go live. Yeah. So yeah, that's what Bill's talking about. But yeah, thanks for joining the Bill DeMott Experience. Of course, did I say Disperience? I meant Experience. It's been a long day, like you said, Bill. Anyways, I'm Jeff. He's Bill. We are here, gathered here today with my special shirt on.
I was going to say, what's with the shirt?
Well, Bill, what's with the shirt is because we're going to talk about what everybody in the whole world of professional wrestling and across other areas of entertainment is talking about. That is the big CM Punk return to WWE that happened at Survivor Series on Saturday night. We're recording on Monday night, and of course, he's expected on Raw, which we'll be jumping on when we're done here. But nevertheless, Bill, that's what we're talking about tonight, man.
Yeah, it's so you and I have talked about this in the past. One, I've been looking forward to it for 2 days because I know you're a big CM Punk fan. And that's all well and good. But we've been talking about, well, what if this, maybe you should go here? What if it was Impact? What if, all these things. And then lo and behold, at the very end of this pay-per-view. What is it? It's not pay-per-view anymore. It's a
premium live event. Premium live event, Bill.
PLE. With one of the best returns of all time. And a way better than average pay-per-view, in my opinion.
Good one. They needed it, too.
It all gets taken away in 3 minutes.
You say taken away, I say maybe the focus shifted slightly, but I don't know.
Slightly.
Okay, so hey,
if everybody can see my slightly.
So before we do that, okay, so I do want to do something before, because I know what you're saying. Let's start out here by giving, let me pull it up here. You always say, what is it Mark Henry says? Give your flowers to.
Flowers, yep.
So I want to go ahead and give flowers to the first thing before we get into this.
Okay.
It's got a bunch of old stuff here. I'll let you talk about, let's give Randy Orton his flowers. Let you talk about it for a minute, then I'll try to get this working here.
I think it was done right. I was very interested in how they kept teasing if Randy was or wasn't there. I like during the show they kept going to Sammy, and Sammy going to Seth, and Seth going to Cody, and everybody saying, is he coming? Is he coming? I like the thread throughout the show. I like the idea of him not being in the cage. I absolutely loved the idea of Ripley coming to cash in the Money in the Bank, and then perfect time to hit that music. And it was just, I think that's what the people were waiting for. And I think that's what WWE needed, that big shot in the arm from not, and this is where it's going to sound wrong, but right, I can only say the way Bill's, not a new face, a face that we know, a face that's been there. You know what I mean? Someone we've missed. AJ Styles is going to be coming back. We did it when Rey Mysterio came back. They did it when Edge came back. But Randy coming back after that year and a half was really special. This is what we did.
Okay. So this is what I got here.
Okay.
Let's start it off. Let's show Randy Orton's return.
Priest is going to cash in. Not in War Games. Let the war games begin! is underway. Randy Orton's in position.
We saw fantastic stuff. I mean, that was a Mania moment.
Yeah.
That was
out of fear of not copyright infringing the WWE to the full extent. I didn't share all the moments, but I did like when they did the vintage Orton DDT on the legs rope spot, all of them at once.
All of it at once, right? Everybody paying homage to the Viper. Great stuff. I did find it very, very interesting at the end. And why I find it interesting is because, as I watch these, like, that's my son's first War Games. So he was really intrigued by it, and he couldn't believe that the match didn't start till all of them were in.
Right,
so
right, yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to see his take on it and how he watched it. And then, so here's what he said to me. He goes, Dad, Randy Orton's on fire, but he gave the win to Cody.
Yes.
Listen to how I said it again. This is how he said it to me. Randy Orton's on fire, but he gave the win to Cody.
Great observation by little Billy.
So, and then 1 Mississippi, 1.5 minutes, 2 Mississippi, music hits, all gone.
Yep.
And I don't mean that, and I don't mean all gone, it's worthless. It's all forgotten about because, boom, here comes your guy.
So we'll get to that here in a second. You would like to see it set in for a whole other night? Are you understanding the significance of it being Chicago?
And you and I have talked about this. Here's why I am completely naive to it. I don't understand the low-hanging fruit. In Chicago, Punk is going to get a pop. That pay-per-view was over like gangbusters. It didn't need the pop. And dare I say, the wrestling fans didn't need the extra attraction. They were already there. That pay-per-view was going to sell well. I don't know what the buy rates are. I don't know, but everything, the numbers have to be good on it. I would have saved Punk for the Royal Rumble. Or I would have saved Randy for the Royal Rumble. But giving the people Punk in Chicago, it's too easy.
We'll get into that. And my thoughts on that. Let's show the Punk. Let's show Punk. So yeah, let's set it up here. The show is going off the air. Actually, Cody Rhodes' music is playing at this point in time. Triple H actually makes the call to throw the logo up on the screen, which I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, it's off the air. So logo's up on the screen. It's seconds away from what would always be a WWE show, pay-per-view, premium live event, whatever, ending. And this is what happens. That's an attitude error pop there.
It's unbelievable. And that's why I say I'm not taking anything away from it. Let me ask you this. Would he get that pop tonight in Nashville on Raw?
And I don't know, but there would definitely be a significant pop. We both know that.
But do you? And I'm going to ask you because you're the of the two of us. You are definitely the senior Punk fan, and not that I'm not, but I know you're.
Yeah, over 20 years. Yeah,
that they could have brought Punk anywhere and got that response, or did it have to be Chicago?
It probably would have had to have been Chicago, but I'll explain to you why it's significant throughout the rest of this episode as well.
Okay.
I think that. Okay, let's just, before we get to that completely, let's talk about some of the things that went on before this.
Okay.
There was a lot of talk. You and I have been talking about this for months. Everybody's been talking about this for months. And a lot of our good friends, I say good friends, they blocked, the dirt sheets. They had deemed that this was not happening. This was not going to happen. There was no discussion. There was no deal. It was a hard no. It was a no. It was a hard no for WWE, not worth the risk. Then I think Dave Meltzer threw in the side note that this was, but I mean, anything's possible, right? Like he said, but it was a hard no, stop in the sand. That was not going to happen. And obviously it did. Let me ask you this before we get into that, because I have it laid out here. We're going to cover everything like that.
Okay.
Let's just say that AEW was going to bring him in at their pay-per-view. Would this have leaked?
Would it have leaked? We would have known a week before.
Yeah.
And we probably would have seen the merchandise. We probably would have seen the whole everything given up way before it ever happened. People would have been in the crowd that night with new Punk merchandise on before it happened. I mean, and don't forget, we've talked about this, and I gave you my behind the curtains knowledge of the fact that I've told you that the company will let the dirt sheets have certain information. You protect me, I protect you. So everybody was saying it's not going to happen, right? I don't call that a coincidence. I call that one of those, hey, give us this, and we'll make sure we drop some bombs on you or something.
In fact, our good friends at the Wrestling Observer they discussed this, didn't necessarily discuss, a lot of people were pretty hard on a lot of these journalists online.
So I hear CM Punk is back. Is that right? He's back in WWE?
CM Punk signed a multi-year contract, yes.
Wow,
with WWE.
Multi-year contract.
He's back. He's back with WWE. The deal came together about 10 days ago. Obviously kept a complete secret from almost everyone. Paul Levesque said that the TKO people found out watching the TV, which I thought was ridiculous until I asked around and I was told the exact same thing. The TKO people, no matter what, we're talking like Mark Shapiro and Ari Emanuel, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them knew, but I was told basically that it's not their gig. You know what I mean? They're there to do business deals and make money, and the creative is in the hands of WWE. And it would be the same way with UFC. I mean, if like let's say there was a big falling out with Dana White and Conor McGregor, which I guess could be. But if there was, it would be like Dana's, it wouldn't be like they would go in there and go, you've got to sign him. It's like that would be Dana's gig. So it was a Nick Khan call. In the end, it was Nick Khan who made the call. Vince had nothing to do with it. Paul Levesque had obviously a lot to do with it. And those were the two guys that were the point guys. And, aside from that, it made sense to do it on this show. From what I understood, it was one of those things where it was a no, except if they felt that the public demand was there. And I actually wrote that in this week's issue, in the sense that if they believed that the demand was there, they're not going to be an organization that fights the fans. And that's pretty much it. Would Vince have done it in the same situation? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. I mean, I always expected that someday he would be back, and probably sooner than later. And the other thing too is there's other, a lot of other things. I mean, number one, there is a wrestling war going on.
The demand was always there, Bill.
Yeah, he's not saying anything that he's not shining a light on anything that hasn't been discussed. Here's the thing that bothers me about one of the first things he said. Yeah, he signed a multi-year deal and all. Why is he the one telling us that information? These are the things that irk me to no end. And I know I'm going off side, but it's just the thing of listening to it going, why weren't the fans told by Triple H or by WWE? Why did they have to come out, and why is it necessary? I know why it's necessary. It helps, it keeps that hat up on the ego. I know it keeps the money flowing for him, but those things, that aside, there was no doubt that Punk was coming back somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah. We didn't know where.
He was coming back somewhere, and I think a lot of people, in my opinion, probably got worked over in this deal. A lot of people were probably promised or told, hey, I'm very interested. Maybe TNA got bamboozled a little bit out of this. And
yeah, apparently from reports, it was actually a lot closer than you'd think.
Yeah. And then
they offered him more money than they really could even. And it didn't happen, yeah. And
then, later on in the week before the weekend, there was talking about, maybe it's New Japan. And, when they start throwing other things out there, it's, somebody knows something. But the thing that, even listening to those guys, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but even listening to them, a lot of people didn't know. And I think that when I say a lot of people, I'm not talking about executives. I'm talking about people who are going to share a locker room.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, now I'm interested in, and this is what happens. I think this is what brings the fans into wanting to know more behind the scenes stuff, is all these things that go on. I mean, and I know I'm probably jumping it, but we saw Seth Rollins have a hissy fit. We saw Drew McIntyre storm out. We saw all these things happening. But it was all surrounding one guy. And so did we just drop every other major storyline? And by we, I mean WWE. Did they just stop every other major storyline? Are we starting over going into WrestleMania season? I'm kind of lost. And here's the thing: I'm not even intrigued. I'm just curious as to where. Okay, now where's Cody stand with the Bloodline? Now where's Randy stand? Where's this stand? And now Punk's in the picture. Is he going with Seth? And how come? Is that why we don't see Nakamura? All these things start. These are the things I start thinking about. Is this why Seth and Nakamura stop? Because this is already in the works. Is there truly a Punk Rollins animosity? I mean, so everything to me stopped and it starts over tonight. I think storylines are dead in the water now.
And I've got what you're talking about. We'll show that here in a minute with the Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre thing. Were our friends at the Dirt Sheets worked? Or just not included?
I think they were less included than normal. And then that's why they feel now they got the okay, so now they're going to tell everything they do know. So they don't feel left out. But I think they were left out creatively.
Which, all by design by WWE.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's just so fascinating because it was just shot down to the fullest extent. We will get back to our friends at the Wrestling Observer also because they have all the scoop on what we're about to talk about here. And we're going to get back to the impact on the CM Punk part before we end the episode. I do want to make sure we talk about that. So you mentioned Seth Rollins. So the focus on the CM Punk return itself lasted a good 30 minutes to 1 hour on social media. I mean, first of all, it never stopped on social media. Let's not lie. We'll get to that also later. But then immediately we start seeing these clips come in of Seth Rollins pissed off. Shortly after, we see a clip of Drew McIntyre storming out before CM Punk's music hits. He seems to be pissed off.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and share that real quick here. And also at the backside of this, I did also include, Bill, just to let you know, their reactions last night, so 24 hours after at a live show, where it appears to be they've smoothed things over and not quite as emotional.
Somebody who's been gone for 8 years and has done nothing but try to tear this place down. Instead, I want to take my time, waste my breath, use my breath. I'm talking about the people who've been here all along. That's everybody in the back who's been WWE the hottest ticket in town. And that's every single.
Watching the show, you know why. I didn't win the World Title match recently, War Games last night. My stupid team lost the match for me. You've heard things probably on the internet. Not in a great place, but there's one thing that can turn this frown upside down, that can change things for me. It's getting that World Title, and I can't think of anywhere better than for Big D to finally raise his first World Title in front of live fans than right here in Peoria, Illinois.
So it shows the incident in hand at the moment. Then it segues to the live event they did last night. Obviously, McIntyre had a match.
Yeah.
It's Rollins, which is typical of a live event, a title match. So it seems as if all this anger really, in my opinion, looked like it was maybe a little bit blown out of proportion.
Or was it so red hot that they were asked to tone it down so they could put that out? Because the last thing you want, and this is just, I'm just saying it plain and simple, the last thing anybody wants, especially the WWE, is animosity amongst their superstars. Real, not real, they cannot follow that storyline and what happened in AEW. Because if it ever comes to that again, someone's going to have egg on their face. Because I think they told them, however you want to turn it down, turn it down. But if I was Drew McIntyre, I'd be pissed because Drew McIntyre just went down about 4 more rounds.
Well, Bill, you're speaking as if you know all the answers, and I'm not sure you or I do, but we know that our friends at the Wrestling Observer, they know all the answers on what's going on with this, and they will explain it to us on a brief, it's about a minute long here.
But, yeah, it was the guys in the match knew, as far as it wasn't like he came out and nobody knew. The guys in the match knew. They didn't. I think some would have been very, very upset if they didn't know, because it would be like the company swerving them. And I think they don't want to be, they don't want to do that to their talent. They you know what I mean? So that much was going on. As far as the Seth thing goes, that was all an angle. And, people have asked me about Drew. So the deal with Drew...
the two things that we're talking about here is after the show went off the air, there was a deal where Seth was very, very upset, and they had the wrestlers and I think, who else was out there with him? Corey Graves was out there, and he's flipping off, and he's all angry and everything like that. That was an angle.
That was 100%. That was 100% angle because playing off the fact that months ago, when somebody asked Seth Rollins, it's like, he's a cancer, we don't want him. Which later, by the way, he said, you know what, I mean, if it's, if the company wants him, and it's the right thing, he doesn't have a problem with it. But because he made that statement, they figured they could do like a shoot angle with it, and it makes sense. So, yeah.
And then Drew, as soon as the match ended, and before Punk came out, he left the ring, he was holding his eye, and he just stormed to the back. And apparently got his stuff on and left.
He was very upset. As the night went on, he was less upset. And as far as the reason he left, I don't want to give any wrong information. I probably will know. I mean, I will say that within the company, people in the company who told me thought it had to do with Punk. I cannot confirm that. Only that's what people in the company thought, but he was legitimate. But he was legitimately upset about something, whatever it was, I don't know. And Mike Johnson actually had a thing the other day about, he has not signed a new contract. And, obviously he is, of all those names, when I talk about, that they want to lock up, I would think that, his deal's up, because his deal's up in roughly around April. It was actually up at the end of this year, but because of the time he took off because of the injury, they tacked it on at the end. So it goes right through. Basically, I think he's under, his deal will end at Mania. And put it this way, it's 2024 is probably a great year to be Drew McIntyre.
There's nothing left to discuss, Bill.
I mean, it's all we got. Thank you so much.
They didn't know about the Punk return, but they can now confirm that the Seth Rollins was 100% an angle. McIntyre's upset about something. We don't know what. It may or may not be CM Punk. Nothing to talk about.
Well, then that's it.
That's what I thought when I put this together. I got to share this.
Yeah.
So they know it all. They're right back to knowing it again.
I always have a problem with the people I talk to. Let's face it, dude. Say who you talk to, or stop saying the people I talk to. Because half the people he'd like us to think, in my opinion, he'd like us to think they're executives, but we all know it's somebody in the locker room.
It has to be.
That he has a relationship with. So instead of hearing, well, the people I've talked to, just name them. You name everything else, you've got all the other information. Name them. And what? I don't know.
Let's say Seth Rollins is really that mad. He's also smart enough to realize there's money to be made too, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Seth knows there's money to be made there. But that only benefits Seth.
Which comes back to your point about Drew.
Yeah, and that's if Seth can put up with, if all these things, are true and come to fruition here like they did in AEW, are they going to do business that way and all these other things? But now the bigger thing is, okay, you've got the low-hanging fruit. You got Punk in Chicago. The people went crazy. There's no doubt about it. He's a wanted man. There's no doubt about it. What about all the cats that have been built up before this? Nakamura, back down the ladder. McIntyre, back down the ladder. Forget it, he's not even in the conversation, but Gable's been knocked back down the ladder after going with Gunther, doing great stuff. But now and maybe it's just me because today I was busy, but I wasn't busy yesterday. I was with family and stuff. But social media, nothing. I don't want to say nothing, to be fair. Very little about the pay-per-view as a whole. Very little about the matches. Very little about the storyline. Very little about all these things. And everything was Punk. That, to me, is a problem. And the problem, I think, lies within the organization itself, because how do you make this right? And then, according to Uncle Dave, this multi-year contract that Punk is signed to, how do you make it right with him? And now, are you telling me that it's Roman Reigns and Punk at WrestleMania and it's not Cody Rhodes? I mean, I'm just going to keep throwing things out there now as long as I can, because I think it throws a wrench in everything that happens. It's not a bad problem to have. I think it's a bad problem to have in the back.
Right. And that's where you step in, and that's where your area of expertise is. Obviously, I'm going to say it's not a bad problem to have. And I will go ahead and we'll just show you this. This is just a picture. Let's see if I can find it here. It's not letting me actually show the picture, but I think I have it on my phone. I can read it to you. It's pretty fascinating, Bill.
Okay.
It's just the information behind this. So this is something put together by Wrestle Ops. So they put together a lot of the data that you hear across a lot of the podcasts, especially like the hour by hour breakdown of the shows, a lot of the viewing. Yeah. So this is a fact for you, and why I think is this will overshadow all this ultimately from a business standpoint. 87 million. CM Punk's return to WWE at Survivor Series 2023 has surpassed an estimated 87 million views across official WWE social media platforms.
Yeah.
Clips uploaded in under 24 hours. So of all the stuff WWE itself has put up, It is over 87 million views. That's not including anything I put up. That's not including anything anybody else put up. So what WWE has put up going over 87 million views, Bill. I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the story. And I think that's what you have with a CM Punk.
Yeah.
You don't have that with many other people that could come in at this particular moment and do that. And I think that's significant.
And there's no telling how many views you would have got from Randy or anybody else. But I'm not disagreeing. That's a huge number. That, dare I say, let me do a little foreshadowing. Would you call those Logan Paul numbers?
I don't know if Logan Paul even got that.
Would you say that Logan Paul might want to be around those numbers?
Yeah, I think anybody would. Bill, this was huge. You had professional teams tweeting about this. You had the Chicago Cubs tweeting about this. At ESPN tweeted.
Yeah.
It was more than we usually even talk about, because we always talk about this with WWE, just excellent strategy on social media. I think the worth of the company, that has to be in there somewhere. Like, you had people say, how's it worth $9 billion? Think about what I just told you.
Oh, forget it.
They had the ability to make moves and do things like this, which is freaking absolutely huge.
You know who made out on this?
What'd you say?
You know who made out on this more than anybody else?
Who's that?
Slim Jim, Ruffles.
Yeah.
Who's the other sponsor? They got to be going crazy.
Yeah.
The sponsorship money that's going to be coming is going to be crazy. And that's what Punk brings to the table.
Yeah.
And I'll never take that. And I don't, if it's coming across the way, I don't mean to, but I'm not saying Punk has ruined everything. I'm saying Punk has put such a wrench in it, not in a bad way. Punk's return has put such a wrench into the things that were going WWE storyline-wise, I think right now, and I'll be the first to admit no, it didn't affect anything, but I feel like there's a few guys that are going to be going down the ladder. I will say this, strategically, people say that WWE doesn't need to worry about what AEW did. But I got news for you. Edge going to AEW was a cool thing, right? It was big news. It was cool. It was big news. It was, wow, Edge meant Punk coming back here. There's nothing AEW can do.
Let's talk about that. Tony Khan had a quote. Tony Khan was asked about this. This was an interview with BBC West Midlands. He said, can't talk about that, nor do I think it's the time to talk or place. But I appreciate you asking. I'm really excited about AEW All In at Wembley Stadium. Not to dodge or duck your question. It's just not something I can legally talk about. Did they just let a... Punk was the reason for some of their views in their viewership. And he was the reason definitely leading their merch.
Yep.
This just shows you, if done right, what an individual like CM Punk can do for your brand.
Yeah.
And that just walked out the door. The boys poked the bear until they got him fired, which I have no doubt that's what they wanted all along.
Yeah.
I say I think Young Bucks, I don't know. They just give off that vibe when they're prancing around the ring doing victory laps. I get it. But you can't help but believe a lot of people around there wanted this all along. That just goes to show you some bad business practices.
Yeah, I think it's one of those social media training answers Tony Khan gave. Right?
Yeah.
We can't talk about that right now, but let's talk about what we're doing. Because nothing Tony could say, I don't think, could justify the move. And quick little tidbit as we're talking about AEW part of this, I understand QT Marshall just left. QT Marshall just resigned.
But Bill, Will Ospreay joined, and I was in arguments on Reddit. That is way bigger than the CM Punk thing. Did they just see the data that I just shared to you? No offense to Will Ospreay. He's an amazing professional wrestler. I don't know if he'll ever be able to compare to anything like that.
No, he'll never draw that kind of attention.
Edge can't even draw that kind of attention, and that's not taken away from Edge.
No.
But Edge isn't this personality, and he has extended outside of wrestling. He's done some stuff on television. He's done a great job. But the following that CM Punk has built in general is incredible.
Yeah, he's a no pun intended. He's a cult figure.
Yeah.
And he keeps himself like the guy's a genius. He stays relevant. He made the rounds while in the past couple of weeks before this premium live event. He was making the rounds. He was showing up here. He was at a hockey game. He was here. He was there. People are talking about him. The guy's no dummy. And here's the thing. He's no dummy, and he had the WWE machine behind him while he was doing it. So they were making sure that he was seen.
Triple H talked about that here.
A lot of things to talk about in the show. Let's talk about the big return. R-Truth. Back. Right? R-Truth is back, baby. Yeah. Eating chips, just going to town. R-Truth is the man. Yeah. And, I never saw it coming. You know what I mean? And how we were able to keep that quiet, mind-blowing. But R-Truth is back. I expect that to be headlines everywhere for all of you. This was one of those sort of lightning in a bottle moments that came together very quickly. But we are incredibly excited about it. You know, it's been a long time, and in some ways been a long time coming. You know, you could say this about CM Punk. Love him, hate him, positive, negative, whatever you want to say. People talk about him all the time. He is a magnet for that. He is a conversation starter. And it's tough to look past that. And for me, if our fans want it, if the WWE Universe is excited to have it, then let's go. And we'll figure out the rest of it from there. This came together super quick, which I'm sure is why it stayed very tight. You know, there's a lot of speculation at that point. It was nothing but speculation. For most of the time, it was speculation. It didn't really start to come to fruition until everybody stopped thinking it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it was happening. But extremely excited. You know, a lot of time has gone by, almost 10 years, right? And if you are the same person you were 10 years ago, 10 years later, you've messed up. Everybody grows. Everybody changes. And I'm a different person. He's a different person. This is a different company. And we're all on the same even starting ground. So what's next for CM Punk? That'll be interesting, won't it?
That's always been the mindset of the company. You heard it for me. I heard it before I was part of the company, and you know, you saw all these controversial firings and all these things, but it was always said, if you can make money with that person, Vince was going to use you. And I know that's the same ideology that Hunter has with it as well, and he says it. And I'm living proof of, if you can change from the person you were, right? That's how I got my opportunities to come back 2 other different times, right? The evolution of the person and the business and the company and where it stands and things like that. So everything Paul was saying was 100% legitimate. And I think what he did say, without putting too much emphasis on, if the fans want it and the WWE Universe wants it, they're going to do it. And the rest we'll figure out as we go. And that's really how this thing is supposed to work.
Which segues back to my point that I was going to make. And that's what overshadows everything. But to your point, backstage, it's a different dynamic. But what I'm seeing as a fan is everything we discussed.
Yeah, but I think that's the same thing. And here's the thing about Hunter, Paul, Triple H, whatever we're going to call him. He has no problem sitting down the whole talent. He'll go, listen, this is what it is. And jump on. Let's see where we're all going to go. If there's an issue, let me know and we'll deal with it. And I don't think it's a lot of mayhem in the back. I think for the people that weren't in the know, because according to Uncle Dave, at least the guys in the War Games match knew. But let's say that the mid-card guys, the lower, the guys and gals and people that were people that have been there for a lot of years, like Seth said in his promo and the thing, that have been there and didn't hear about it, I'm sure there's a little animosity about being left out of that. But at the end of the day, that's not their job. Their job is there to entertain, perform, and just because you're buddies with people doesn't mean you need to know everything. That's my opinion of what's going to happen in the back. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of people. And here's that walking on eggshells mentality. Everything that happened at the pay-per-view was positive, right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
But there are some that look at that as, now I'm in trouble. Now I'm looking over my shoulder. Now I'm second guessing. So that's why I say the behind the scenes is going to be a little bit more hectic than what the fans and everybody else sees. But as far as business, when you hear Triple H talk like that, you've got to take him at face value, because that's exactly what he means. He said it. He's grown, and I mean, it's common knowledge that Punk didn't see eye to eye. But here's the thing: we don't have to see eye to eye to do business, draw big money, and do things together. We don't have to break bread and have a glass of wine at a restaurant together or anything like that. We don't have to be best buddies. We don't have to be text message buddies or anything like that. Let's just show up and do work. And if they come to that agreement, come on, dude. It's a win. My whole thing, but when I started my diatribe about the whole night was lost, was because it's a fact. It's a fact. And one of the best pay-per-views I'd seen in a while. Like, I was like, wow, this is really freaking good. The girls hooked me from the jump.
Yeah.
And it kept going. It had its lulls where it should have had lulls, and it came back. So that's what I was saying. It's like, wow, it's amazing that like I said, I would have wondered if I would have kept Randy for the Rumble or Punk for the Rumble. That would have been, and that's being an armchair quarterback. No idea what's going on. No idea what the plans are or anything else like that. Like, I'm playing armchair quarterback. But I thought it was a great moment. I was like, I could not believe it, man. When the music hit, I was almost hoping that they forgot to go off the air and they were just screwing with the people. And
they did that last time he quit. Remember Paul Heyman came out?
Yeah. I almost was wishing that was the thing. Where you keep watching, going, you got to be kidding me. And
were you thinking? I wonder what Jeff's thinking right now.
Well, no, I knew what you were thinking. You were doing jumping jacks and burpees and all kinds of. You were doing laps around the house.
One of my daughters is still awake. She's like, "What? What's going on?"
He strategically never went past those cages. Everything about it was brilliant. And then that's when my mind went to, wow, coming off that high of watching that crowd and feeling that energy like through the boob tube. You felt that energy. And then afterwards I'm going, wow, nothing else mattered tonight. That's where my mind went. Not that, it didn't matter. It's just like, wow, everything else was negated. And that's a tough spot to be in for Punk.
It's a tough spot to be in for Punk. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because, yeah, I mean, he comes in and he's got to get into the equation. But I will say the War Games match, and we could talk more on Thursday, but was kind of designed for that was the ending. Now you could branch off and have storylines, but there's not much else you can do with that match itself. The spectacle was great. The match was great.
The match itself is done, yeah.
But after that, it's what you have to go elsewhere with the storylines from there. You just hope that you could help advance those storylines, and maybe it'll pivot to other directions. But yeah, for the match itself, though, that's it for it.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I got out of that match was Jey Uso has a storyline with everybody in there.
Yeah.
So Jey's set. That I know. Jey Uso's set for the next 6 months. He's got storylines. After that, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah. And I know we'll talk more about the actual pay-per-view itself on Thursday, but I do want to share one more thing here.
Okay.
Just to give credit to how successful this pay-per-view was, though.
Amazing night, I think, across the board for everybody. I'll start off by saying thank you all for being here. As I made my way up here through this crowd, it was hard not to feel the excitement and the energy that is here in Chicago. This has always been an amazing market for us. This Allstate Arena this has been, in my career, probably my favorite building to perform in. It's just deafeningly loud in here, the way the acoustics are set up, the wood roof. People in Chicago are just loud and excited to be here, and you could just always count on it being an incredible night. And tonight was no different. The last two nights were no different. Two sold-out back-to-back shows here. Over just short of 34,000 tickets sold here for two nights. Incredibly successful. I want to thank Slim Jim for making this press conference happen, and hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving leading into tonight. But let's talk a little bit about business. Tonight was the highest grossing Survivor Series in history, and matter of fact, the highest grossing event here, with the exception of WrestleMania when it was here, and it was neck and neck with WrestleMania. For me, that's a positive on both sides. Win-win. I was in the main event of that WrestleMania, so it doesn't bother me that much. But that's something pretty special right here. 37 years of Survivor Series to be the biggest one ever. Sponsorship up about 25% from last year, so across that. And then the viewership, just spectacular tonight. We opened up the show with the Women's War Game match, and right out of the gate, by far largest viewership of all time, and it just grew throughout the evening. So we don't have all the final numbers in yet, but we will, and this one was a whopper. So very, very exciting.
That's the bottom line. Everything is up. If everything is up, guys like me, and that's I put myself in that too. You can't get worked up about the things like, and that's what you and I talk about this, and I try to make this a staple to every conversation. We're not criticizing it, right? We critique it. That's why I use the term armchair quarterback. I'd never second guess anything they do because I've been there. I understand the method to the madness. What I try to say to our fans and the WWE universe and wrestling fans is you've got to let things simmer and set in, and you've got to trust the process instead of automatically going with the negative. My thing is not a negative. In my opinion, it's not a negative. I'm saying everything was lost because this was spectacular. All the pressure now is on CM Punk. Not the pressure he had of coming back to AEW again and it not working out. That was a different kind of shenanigans. This pressure, that pop, those numbers, Punk has to be on, and Punk has to be able and willing to play with the playbook WWE has now, not the playbook they had 10 years ago. That's the difference for me in AEW and WWE. AEW,
you can do it?
Your own playbook, do your thing.
You think you can do it?
It's a little bit more parameters.
I was asking, do you think you can do it? And I'll say the difference between, I think he almost really wanted to take on a complete leadership role for all things AEW. And he's not the only one that's frustrated by the
mindset
going on there. He's just the only one publicly talking about it.
Yeah, I think he can do it. I think if he signed a multi-year deal, and knowing what I do know about the company, they think he can do it too. Now, barring, heaven forbid I knock wood, everybody, that's me knocking wood. Heaven forbid, no injuries and things like that. I think that Punk will be set up for success. I think he's going to set himself up for success. I believe that Punk's the guy who will take other people with him as he builds momentum. And to me,
it felt like that's what he wanted to do in AEW.
Yes, but it was a different. They all weren't vying for that same momentum. They were vying for the me momentum. They weren't vying for the vibe of the whole thing. Like this thing, if this thing goes, there's going to be another resurgence in wrestling, and it's all going to be one-sided.
Dave Meltzer said there was a war. We had a wrestling war in our hands. I don't feel like it, Bill.
I don't think there, and that's why I say I don't think we had a wrestling war prior to Punk because, and it's no disrespect, but Edge going and then Ric Flair signing, that's not war material. Jade Cargill coming over, that's not war material. That's just people making decisions what's best for them. The war was the Tuesday Night Wars or whatever it is, and now people say, well, there's a Friday Night War. Well, if there is, that war's over. The war's been won. I don't see, and if I were AEW, I'd make sure we don't use that term "we're at war with anybody," because the numbers, that's it, right? Somebody always said math doesn't lie, right? Numbers don't lie. But I think he can do it. I really hope to see this unbelievable momentum. Now, there's no telling yet because, listen, the only guy we haven't talked about in this thing is Roman Reigns. Now, as we go into Thursday and every episode past, we've got more topics than we've ever had. And it's interesting. Here's what I love about this business. It's going to change every week. And that's what gets me excited. We're no longer in the same, like, oh, this is and I say, well, what about Nakamura? Because I was really excited Nakamura and Rollins had something going. I felt like it just was cut off and that was it, move on. Gable.
I was excited Nakamura had something, period.
Yeah. Gable Gunther. I thought that was going to be a thing leading into it. By the way, I thought Miz did an amazing job the other night. Boom, but that was taken away from us. So I'm really interested to see where they're going now because there's enough main event players, men and women, in that company that we're talking about tonight that can take it to a whole different level. And here's the big difference, going back to what I think the difference is. I think that the WWE mindset, the talent mindset, knows the difference between business and personal. Where I think AEW, I feel this way, this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to fight, I'm going to live and die on that hill. You know what I mean? So I think he can do it. I hope he does it. I hope everybody benefits from it. And how do you not get excited about it? I mean, you have to be excited about what that pop alone. If you're a fan, you get excited about it. But if you've ever been around that, it brought chills. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Like now I'm so interested now in every show again. So then that means it worked.
You do have a good point, though, and before we close up shop for the evening, WWE still has to be careful, and I have no doubt they're more capable. They'll be fine, but you still have to develop new main event guys.
Yes.
And this is not the first time they've, like you said, this is a good problem to have, this star power. This is not the first time WWE's had this star power, right? I mean, but to your point, you do have to be able to continue to develop new main event guys for when this is over. And I think with the contract status that we see of less dates on a lot of these guys, like Roman Reigns, there's no way that was CM Punk's biggest problem, right? Was how hurt he was and how,
right,
burnout he was, I guess, in simple terms. So I will say, in one way, it's been a strange element to the business, but in another, it's been beneficial for a lot of these other guys having to step up. So they'll continue to have to navigate those waters.
Yeah, and if we were back pre-COVID, the WWE talent pool, they have enough talent and main event players and people that are so recognized they could be running 2 crews again. That's how strong they are right now, I think. I know
it's running 2 crews. What are you talking about, Bill?
I know it'll never happen again, but we used to run East Coast, West Coast,
yeah.
And I know it's the business has changed, but I believe they have that many players. They could run 3 crews, and I'm not even counting NXT, to where, all these things happen. So it'll be very, so what is it? Now it's the road to WrestleMania. It's going to be exciting from here on out.
Yeah. We have Elimination Chamber and then the build up to the Royal Rumble. I mean, that's going to be huge. And to your point, how is this all going to play together? We don't really know. That's the exciting part about it.
It's going to be amazing. I'm curious to see how many days you're going to wear that shirt? That's my biggest question.
Well, I'm going to save it for every time we record, just so you can
I'm
look at
going to get you a CM Punk bobblehead for Christmas. I want to see it on the show every week.
it. Really lights up this studio, too. in the studio, should I say. How white it is compared to the light, like the lighting on it and everything right now. Really makes this shirt look pristine condition.
You guys, man.
Dude, Bill, I know this is a little bit shorter episode, and I was terribly prepared. I apologize. I stumbled across the dog gate.
I love it.
I made you wait 15 extra minutes because I didn't send the invite somehow.
Well worth the wait.
Well worth the wait, and we got a little bit of the CM Punk thing out of our system, so it won't hijack the whole entire show when we record later this week. But man, this was such a huge thing. And the thing is, WWE did need it, you're right. But when we talk about going back to what we said earlier, all the things that Triple H has talked about were a positive. But you had 87 million eyes.
87 million.
In 24 hours from WWE social media, official, like I said, not including anything else,
right.
Just WWE's, laid eyes on this, and the world was talking about it.
That's what it's always been about.
And I think
if the world's talking about it, they can't be wrong.
Any frustrations backstage, like you talked about, I'm sure that is in consideration too. Triple H always used to say, and he brought up a good point about how he's grown over the last 10 years. CM Punk's grown over the last 10 years. But about 10 years ago, and I'll show you a clip later this week, this best for business phrase was brought up quite often with the authority figures in charge. And I think that is just really true to what's going on right now, just trying to make decisions that are best for business. So the pay-per-view overshadowed some, completely what you're saying. But man, talk about a big business move and the media and press that came from it. We won't see anything like it for a while. I don't think we're going to get Rock in a match. Even Austin impromptu match, just because it was impromptu, didn't get quite this.
Right.
It's going to be hard to top this. And I think it really is an egg thrown on AEW's face.
I think, like I said, I hope they stay away from that war thing. And let me throw this out before we say goodbye. Punk had a lot of, if the word's loyal, friends in AEW. And don't think that other people won't be thinking the same thing. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know for sure. I'm not stirring the pot. I'm just saying, let's follow suit. A lot of people believed in Phil. Hated to see him go, but knew there were reasons. Now they see what could happen, and hearing how the company's changed and grown and people have changed and grown, that maybe the idea of coming back has changed and grown. So it'll be interesting going forward to see what else happens.
If you're AEW though, you can't get caught up in this. You got to steer the ship. You got to steer the ship in a better direction, more focused on what you're doing, and be more strategic with the moves that they're doing.
Yeah. So
there isn't a war, let's be honest, but that doesn't mean that AEW is bad. That doesn't mean that Impact's bad. But it did just, the bars, I don't want to say the bar, but the space on how close they were is further now. After this.
I will say this. Tony Khan did the right thing by not addressing it.
Yeah.
So kudos to him, and kudos to everybody who kind of maybe buzzed him about it or grew about it. He answered it the right way, and he stayed away from it. So there's promise for everybody all the way around.
Yeah. Man, promising episode, little impromptu episode. This all came together quickly. We wanted to make sure you guys had content this week since we were off Thanksgiving week, so we put in a little extra time to make this one happen, Bill.
Love it, man. I'm glad we did. I know we'll be doing that a lot more as things come up. I like when we stay on top of things like this. It's really cool. And just another opportunity to get on here and talk about what we enjoy the most. So very cool.
As a reminder, join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern live, trying to really get onto some of these other social media platforms. But dude, TikTok and Instagram have blocked my ability to get. They only let you go live on mobile, so I have tried to get the stream key and things like that. It's possible, but that feature's not available to me. So I am trying, as I have built up a better brand on this day in pro wrestling history on those platforms. Obviously, my followers are wrestling fans.
Right.
Try to utilize off that, but they're making it hard. So for now, you can find us, of course, on Twitter, Facebook. Then the YouTube's actually getting the edited content up. The thought behind the social media is we want to hear you. Want to hear what you're saying in the moment. We want to get you in here in the moment. We want to see what you're thinking in the moment. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes.
BDE Live every Thursday night at 9 p.m., Bill. And of course, we have a great website. You can check out all the other content we've created. We are, we'll be at we're less than 2 months away from a year, you and I doing this.
Unbelievable, man.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was about a year ago when we first started talking about what we were going to do. We said we're going to lay this all out after the holidays. So yeah, it's crazy to think about. You and I started talking about this a year ago. Time flies, man. But I couldn't think of a better person to enjoy it with. So
Yeah, me too, brother. This is a great partnership. I appreciate you so much.
Yep, and I, again, apologize for the out-of-control unpreparedness of this live stream, but we will get past it, and I'll be better on the next one, man.
Thank you, brother.
And that's all anybody can do. So keep being you and keep being great.